Here is a summary of the key points discussed by the analysts regarding Russian President Vladimir Putin's visit to India on a DW News segment. Putin's trip to India is his first since the 2022 full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The warm reception, including a personal greeting at the airport by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, is interpreted by experts as highly symbolic. It signals India's commitment to maintaining a strategic partnership with Russia and asserts its foreign policy autonomy. The optics project a vision of a multipolar world order where power is not concentrated in Washington or a US-China bipolar dynamic, but distributed among several major players like Russia, India, and China. Analysts identify several concrete goals for India. First, a long-standing reliance on Russian military hardware, for example, missile defense systems, fighter jets, is central. India seeks to deepen this through joint production, co-development, and technology transfers to bolster its defense against perceived threats from China and Pakistan. Second, India aims to continue importing Russian oil, a relationship that intensified after the invasion of Ukraine. It seeks mechanisms like barter trade to circumvent US sanctions and dollar-based transactions. Third, to address a trade imbalance caused by massive oil imports, India wants to broaden economic ties into sectors like agriculture, textiles, pharmaceuticals, and technology. There is also mention of potential Russian import of skilled Indian labor. Fourth, fundamentally, the visit reinforces India's policy of non-alignment or multi-alignment. It demonstrates India's refusal to be pressured into choosing sides between the US-led West and Russia, aiming instead to maintain beneficial relationships with all major powers. The visit causes disappointment in Washington, which views India as a crucial strategic partner in countering China. US pressure, including tariffs aimed at curbing Indian purchases of Russian oil, has had mixed results. Instead of distancing India from Russia, the pressure may be pushing New Delhi to find alternative, non-dollar payment systems and even deepen trade with Moscow in some areas. The US-India relationship is currently strained, particularly by a stalled trade deal where the Trump administration is seen as driving a hard bargain. However, both sides have strong incentives to eventually conclude a deal due to mutual economic and strategic interests. For Putin, the visit serves to break international isolation and gain economic relief through sustained oil sales and new trade. Politically, he seeks to validate his narrative on Ukraine, blaming NATO expansion, and promote the multipolar worldview. Endorsement from a major democracy like India is a significant diplomatic victory. Experts clarify that India does not condone Russia's invasion. Modi has publicly stated to Putin that this is not the era of war, and India positions itself as a potential behind-the-scenes mediator, relaying messages and advocating for a negotiated settlement. India's pragmatic approach is to separate its bilateral interests with Russia from the Ukraine conflict, hoping a future settlement will relieve the pressure to choose between Washington and Moscow. The analysts concur that while the visit creates diplomatic friction with the United States, it is consistent with India's decades-old strategic calculus. New Delhi is navigating a complex geopolitical tightrope, leveraging its position to extract benefits from both Russia, energy, defense, and the US, trade, strategic partnership. The overarching trend is seen as a move towards a more transactional and multipolar global system, where traditional alliances are fluid and nations prioritize concrete national interests over ideological solidarity.